Hey, you, welcome back to the channel, and I hope you all are enjoying your Friday afternoon. So, um, Bitcoin, what's been going on? Um, so, we see this controversial video title, Bitcoin, the Bulltrap, $800 Bitcoin, and we're going to talk a little bit about Tone Vays and some of the great technical analysis he does with Bitcoin. But what's going on? So let's first talk about the early part of the week, and or the last few days rather, of what's been going on. So we've got this Bitcoin pump, and a lot of us were trying to identify what the reasons were for the pump, and some believe what had been going around is that it started from a April Fool's prank that Warren Buffett had purchased Bitcoin. So I can tell you right off, if they ever try a prank like that again, or you hear something like that, that Warren Buffett's one of these, he's one of these old time investors, set in his ways, the old Wall Street days. And it's very unlikely that Warren Buffett's ever going to purchase Bitcoin. I've studied Warren Buffett. I've listened to him carefully, and I've met people like Warren Buffett when I was in the investment business. And it's kind of like your parents a little bit when you're looking at the mindset of somebody like Warren Buffett. He's not going to change that. So I can tell you right off, if that ever surfaces again, it is not real. And so price of Bitcoin went up. Of course, that's a rumor. That was just a rumor that started it all. What we later learned was that about, I believe, 20,000 Bitcoin were purchased, came to like over $100 million on Coinbase, and that caused the market to go up. And then there was a great deal of trading going on in the markets, as that triggered it. And so a lot of people probably wonder, well, where'd that come from? What's going on with that? So I have a theory about that, and my theory is that what can happen a lot in smaller markets is you can get private equity firms, venture capitalist firms, and remember these groups they have books that they want to make those books look good. And so it's nothing for them to invest into something like Bitcoin, then get, returns for their investors and a variety of things. And so, every now and then, if they start to inject $100 million, $1 billion into the cryptocurrency markets, then what you're going to get is you're going to get a great deal of volume. You're going to get a lot of spikes, but the market generally will pull back. And I'm going to explain to you why that is. So, in several independent studies conducted by auditors, Bitwise had released this information. They found that there were only about $270 million per day that was real trade volume. And to understand that when money goes into the market, the effect of it going into the market, we have this exaggerated effect. So the money that goes into there is not, it doesn't mean that much money actually went into the market. And that's why we get the corrections. Now, of course, many of you have been hearing about the wash trading, where many of the centralized exchanges, in order to draw customers, in order to make more money, they get a little bit crazy with the numbers sometimes. And we were able to find out a lot of it was a false information, because all you had to do is take the number of account holders and divide them by the daily trade volume, and we were finding crazy amounts. Like every person coming in to the exchange was on average investing about $20,000 per person on many of these exchanges. Now, the problem with that is the majority of Bitcoin holders have less than $100 in their wallets. So, it was clear that, those numbers were not accurate. Now, when real money comes into the market, if you get a real $100 million in that market, it's going to exaggerate that market several times over that, maybe 50 times, maybe even 100 times, right? That's very possible as well when you got real money coming in. The problem is you got real money coming in, but the volume of trade is only about $270 million a day in Bitcoin, which means if something like $100 million came in, like what we got in the case with the big buy-in over at Coinbase, then imagine $100 million coming into a daily trade volume of about $270 million. You've injected more than 30% already into, in real cash into the actual volume into $270 million a day that's driving $7 billion in trade volume a day, right? So imagine what that does when it's real actual money, if you're with me and that all makes sense. So a lot of us believe that that's what happened. My personal theory is it's just probably VC firms playing around with the market, and that this isn't real trade volume, and this is going to end up being a bull trap. So let's talk a little bit about the $800 Bitcoin again, right? And I'm not going to go into this long because I got other videos about it. You can go look through my video section, subscribe to the channel, and you'll find out the whole case about the $800 Bitcoin. But I will just give you the main parts of it, okay? And that is many studies had showed that Bitcoin's strongest support and the strongest demand for Bitcoin was around $800, and that had to do a lot with the demand for Bitcoin being related to basically developing nations suffering from hyperinflation, like what you get in Venezuela. Regime changes in certain nations where people would try to leave, but the country will go, okay, you can say sayonara, but you can say sayonara without all of your money because we're keeping all of your money and we're going to let you go. So in order to kind of smuggle that money out of their nations, they would use something like Bitcoin and so on and so forth, right? But you get the idea. And then, of course, the criminal activity part, right? All the people who, were trying to move money here or there, avoid paying taxes and a variety of things. When you couple all that together, what you get is you get this strong supported Bitcoin at $800. Okay. Now, what happens when you have an asset, let's just say theoretical, at $800, much like how we just gave the example of what happens when an actual $100 million goes into the market, right? Or that value is reflected in the market. $100 million reflected in the market isn't the same, is not going to be reflected as $100 million. It's going to be reflected as several billion dollars, okay? It's the same thing with this situation, right? If let's just compare it to stocks. Let's say the book value of Bitcoin is $800. Well, it's going to trade several times above that $800, right? So the real price, according to many of us, is $800, but it's going to trade. It might trade $2,000. It might trade 3-4 times that. It might trade $1,600 or $3,200, right? Now, the cost to mine a Bitcoin, and I said I was going, I'm going to stop right there because I got a video on that. It tells you about all the miners, right, and how much it costs to mine and the efficiency rate of their mining, and that what it's really costing them to mine isn't what's being reported, and that means that the miner is able to mine at a far lesser rate, and on and so forth. But I'm going to skip all that. You can watch that other video, but it could probably put Bitcoin realistically, in my opinion, around about the $2,000 mark, $2,400 mark. So with all that being said, as we look here on the screen, I'm looking at one of Ivan on Tech videos that I haven't finished, right? But interesting enough, look at what the title of the video says. The title of the video says, proof of work and proof of stake, are they obsolete? He has a question mark. Are they obsolete? What does that mean? So I'll leave a link to his video. You'll have to watch it to get all the details, but I can tell you something along the lines of, there are going to be other algorithms that they're already working on that are going to be much more efficient than proof of work and proof of stake. Now, up until this point, what we've dealt with Bitcoin has been that the proof of work algorithm is the best, it's the most tested, right? But if there is a future where proof of work and proof of stake is obsolete because they're finding other ways, then what's the future of Bitcoin look like, right? It might not look as highly valuable as we thought. But not only that, Bitcoin is I almost lost my train of thought. But no, it might not look as valuable as we thought because, I got it again, because many of us believe it's deflationary, right? So we're believing that Bitcoin is it can't be any more of that, so it's a good store of value. Is that correct? Well, that might not be 100% correct either. In fact, it's pretty much false because it's been determined that Bitcoin does have inflation. In fact, there was a Bitcoin Cash developer who, had he not caught an inflationary bug in Bitcoin, it could have caused catastrophic network-wide problems on an unprecedented level. So, Bitcoin, not only is it not really deflationary, but it also moves into the area of just the concept that if Bitcoin is not the number one cryptocurrency, or we can have other means of algorithms that work better than proof of work and proof of stake, what about these other cryptocurrencies? Aren't they as well able to produce a finite amount of cryptocurrencies, making them deflationary as well? So, you have all these factors where, in some people's mindsets, you have different versions of Bitcoins now that are deflationary. But if it's so many different versions that are deflationary, then Bitcoin's not really deflationary, right? But those are for other videos. I go into great detail to explain. So subscribe to the channel. You can get those other videos. Let's talk a little bit about Vays and what's going on with him and why I thought I should mention him in this video. So some of you probably know who Vays is. Vays was a Wall Street vice president of a major investment firm. So he's not just a YouTube personality. He actually knows quite a great deal of things. Many of you know who watch channel, I also work for several investment firms. I work for a venture capitalist firm, and so I've been in these guys' areas, right? Atmosphere, and so I understand how their mind works and what they do. But if you watch Vays, if you know anything about him, if you've watched this content, maybe you've decided where to buy in the market or not, based on his analyses, then you know that he's been pretty darn good at calling Bitcoin prices, and I'm not surprised by that at all. He's good at TA. He's good at technical analysis, and so he knows exactly how this works. So let's talk about the technical analysis, the Bulltrap, what Vays has come up with this week, and I'll try to leave a link in the description. But taking into consideration everything I've said up to this point in the video, as we pulling around the $5,100 mark here on the charts, right now, according to Vays' technical analyses, the market will be pulling back to around the $4,200 mark. Now, here's where it gets a little bit tricky, right? Before it pulls back to around $4,200, it might even be possible for it to shoot up to around $5,800 or something like that. But based on the charts and based on the analyses, Tom Vays believes that it's probably going to pull back to $4,200 over the course of the next several weeks. So think about that. That means that it might go up a little bit, but we're still in a bear market. Why is that? Because after 6 or 7 weeks, based on his analyses, we're going to have this severe pullback to the $4,200 mark. Now, I think he's been quite generous. He's made other predictions before. I think he's been as low as the $2,000 or $3,000 mark, and he's saying, over that short period of time, the short term, it's going to pull back to about $4,200. But many of us think it's going to pull back to even much further down than that. Some of us are thinking. Now, I'm being a little bit more optimistic this year. I don't know, no particular reason. I'm just a little bit optimistic, but a lot of figures are coming in at around $1,800. So that's a lot to think about, based on some of the things I said before about true demand, about the money that comes into the market that is not meeting demand, that is sometimes just the books of the venture capitalist firms, and things along those lines. But, this is just, an opinion. None of us are, can see the future or psychics, but I certainly am not, but I could tell you Tone Vays has been pretty good at it, and that's what his findings are. I am quite bearish at this time on Bitcoin, based on a lot of the things I've discovered and come to find out. But, it's interesting as well. This week I've gotten asked by a lot of people what I think about the market, a lot more people than usual, because I think here's what happens. Here's what I think happens. When the market starts to move in an upward direction, right, and everybody starts talking about mooning and Lamborghini nights and, and all those things, I think we easily get caught up in that euphoria and get caught up in that very optimistic hype. And it's hard to see what's going around the corner, what's happening around the corner, but maybe this is it. Maybe this is the bull run. And so I think a lot of people come to me as a voice of reason. They say, well, maybe I'm a little overhyped. So let me see what Education thinks, because he probably going to try to approach it a certain way. I've been getting a lot of that this week. That's why I really wanted to do the video, because I kind of already covered the case of the $800 Bitcoin. But let me say this in saying that, a lot of us have gotten into the cryptocurrency markets. We've gotten this game to make money. And we've been having this yo-yo effect for the last year. In fact, we haven't had a run like this since about April of last year. So a lot of us are ready to make money. We're like, when is it going to happen? When moon, when is it going to happen? And here's what I got to say to this. I'm going to be pretty much bearish on Bitcoin all year. Maybe getting to the last quarter, might be a little bit more optimistic. But I'm looking at it for it to stay around this low $4,000 range, kind of like what Tone Vays had mentioned. But let me tell you some problems with Bitcoin and why I think, as people like us coming into the cryptocurrency market who want to try to have the opportunity to see some value here. Let me tell you what some of the problems here. Bitcoin, there are several problems when a platform is decentralized, right? And they aren't purely decentralized, right? None of them are purely. We think about Bitcoin, we think about somebody like Satoshi. It kind of started at a centralized point, and it begins to move from centralization to decentralization. So it's a level to decentralization, right? There are levels of decentralization. And so what happens is when you have this decentralized type of a system, nobody's incentivized to promote Bitcoin. Nobody's incentivized to market Bitcoin. It is not besides that fact, Bitcoin is very difficult to use. It's hard to use the technology. The average person who would be people we want to bring in and mass adopt, they're not going to be able to do that because of the difficulty and the technical know-how needed to even deal with it. So they would need something like custodial management, custodial accounts, and a variety of things that we are just kind of opening up the frontiers to, but really don't have. So we would need all that. But here's what I got to say about those of you who are tired of yo-yo effect. You should seriously consider looking at the Bitcoin NYK project, my project, which has, in a very specific way, addressed all these details, addressed problem with how you move Bitcoin, address the learning curve to Bitcoin, addresses the marketing to Bitcoin. And with Bitcoin NYK, it doesn't require Bitcoin holders, people already in Bitcoin, to liquidate their Bitcoin and get into our project, our cryptocurrency that's doing all this. If you hold Bitcoin, we use a technology called the L. Drake equation, the Bitcoin Wave Protocol, which allows you to move your Bitcoin at any time into Bitcoin MYK without losing your Bitcoin, without buying our coin, without moving your Bitcoin. And we verify that you had the Bitcoin and you get the Bitcoin NYK. You don't have to purchase it, right? We don't do ICOs. We don't sell Bitcoin NYK. It trades on a third-party exchange. But all Bitcoin holders have that ability to get Bitcoin NYK and move it to several blockchains at this time to move it at efficient speed. So it's reminiscent to the Lightning Network. It handles the marketing aspect of it. We are actively promoting Bitcoin MYK. So it's a fascinating project. It's a great project, and we believe it's going to lead to being a mass adoption project due to the user friendliness of it. So it's a lot of details about it. We think will work very well. I think from the perspective of an investor, even though we don't sell it directly, the community sells it, right, or third-party exchange. But I think from the perspective of an investor, what you have with Bitcoin NYK is you have now this it's not Bitcoin, but let's just say it's an addition to Bitcoin. This way to move your Bitcoin value without touching your Bitcoin. You are essentially treating your Bitcoin like gold, and Bitcoin NYK is the money to that gold. And we're stopping the double spend by something called the social media verification key. And we'll leave links in the description about Bitcoin NYK. But the reason this is so important, you need to seriously consider Bitcoin NYK with all the information you've heard on this video, is because Bitcoin NYK right now trades at a few cents. And Bitcoin NYK, we believe, as the network grows, as it's kind of integrated as well into a social network, which makes it easier for us to market this project through the interface of a social media site, makes it easy for people to adopt into it, mass adoption, people to use it quite easily, transition through the wallets quite easily. But not only that, Bitcoin NYK, as it trades at fractions of a penny at this point in time. Well, I think it's around 6 or 7 cents now, but it's very, very low. It's not even $1 yet. Has been over $1, but it pulled back. But it is much easier for Bitcoin NYK value to go up and to give you these conditions than it is for Bitcoin, especially with all of the situation we just mentioned. Now, there's a lot more details about Bitcoin NYK I think many of you all will like, and you will begin to understand and see why this is important, my point of view. But we're going to leave links to that so you can take that apart on your own, get into details about it. What you want to do is subscribe to the channel, keep consuming our content, and you will receive all that information about why this is something you need to consider. You do not have to purchase anything. We're not telling you to buy any cryptocurrency. We're only saying the way that the network is comprised. We understand marketing and business to a point where we understand how a network can be valuable unto itself, and we know how to extract and utilize that value, and that's why we don't necessarily need the purchase of the token, right? So if you hold Bitcoin, all you have to do then is transition it over into Bitcoin, and okay, without bothering your Bitcoin, without moving your Bitcoin. So very, very interesting thing we're doing here. It is experimental, but as we've tested it so far, it's working pretty darn well. Some people might consider it a solution to the Lightning Network, which I won't get into deep into the video about all of the legal problems with the Lightning Network that's happening, from taking deposits and falling under banking laws to just a lot of the coding itself and programs itself that has many bugs in it. So I won't get deep into that. Might save that for another video. But we will leave links to all of that. And that's all I want to say in this video, guys. The case for the $800 Bitcoin. Hope you all understand a little bit better. If you don't, feel free to leave comments in the comment section. But that's all I want to say in this video, guys. If you like content like this, don't forget to like, subscribe. Until next time, take care.